Hello, humans of the world. You are now tuned into Relayshons Podcast, where me and a new co-host just like you discuss our relations with ourselves, with each other, and our experiences. Are we ready to break the cycles? You know, the ones that live within our learned behaviors. Have you noticed the decisions you make subconsciously? The ones that lead you right back to where you started? Let's take on the healing journey together. Get on this PJ of unconventional conversations and let's travel all the way through our lineage. Then let's break the cycles link by link. Ready? Let's do this. Hello, humans of the world. Welcome to Relations. Thank you so much for listening to part 1. It was good, wasn't it? Okay, so now we're going to dive a little bit deeper to discuss those learned behaviors that have now manifested into these toxic habits that we call our characters. Blah. Not true. And where we left off, well, I was giving Jesus an example of what I believe are toxic sexual behaviors taught to young boys that make them feel that they need to use their sexual desires as priority to feel emotionally connected. Oof, what a mouthful. Well, tune in right now. As young boys, you know, I grew up with my two older cousins and my brother, right? And so I would hear them getting pressured by other boys about having sex, right? Really early on. So if you were a virgin past the age of 10 as a young boy, it was like you're being joked on. So then what I would see was, okay, so to not be bullied for not being sexually engaging at a early age, you had to lie about it. So I heard men lying about sex at age 8, 9, and 10 years old. Okay. Then I saw the celebration of when a man was sexually engaging at an early age and how much he was celebrated and how much other boys looked at him as he was the man because he was having sex at 10. And then I heard the encouragement of continuing to use their sexual desires and plays as a priority. For instance, oh, you only having sex with your girl? Man, you crazy. Like, you need to go and have, like, how many you gonna get this week? Shoot your shot. How many can you get in a month? Oh, I can get this. And then it became a competitive nature at age 10. So what if I tell you that that is a toxic sexual behavior that was taught to you, and now you as a grown man has taken on this habit as part of your character, but technically that wasn't part of your human nature. That was your learned behavior.
Okay. So I have two things to say about that. All right. The first thing is that at age 10, and I mean, to my experience, I wouldn't say 10, I would say more like 12, 13, men begin to have a biological reaction in their bodies, in particular their penis, when they first begin to have strong erections, and for the first time, they begin to ejaculate. What happens is that there's a strong desire and biological need to have that come out, meaning you want to keep ejaculating, right? Now, what happens is that pressure that you're saying, that peer pressure from other boys or even a father or an uncle or whatever to have sex, that's all about making sure that boy doesn't feel like what he's doing is wrong. As in, go ahead, explore your body, and eventually you will explore that with a woman. Now, I'm not saying that it's right that at 10 he's being forced. I don't agree with being forced. I do agree with the education of understanding your body and understanding your desire. Now, on the other side of that is that women do the opposite in terms of how they're raised and how they are, prized. So, for example, what's a Sweet 16? A Sweet 16 is you're coming out as a woman. You have a whole ritual, or in our culture, it would be a quinceañera, right? You get your first heels for the first time. You can have your first boyfriend for the first time. You have your first chaperone for the first time. You're treated as a princess. That's literally what it is. You have a dress. You have a throne-looking thing for your princess thing, right? You have a dress. You have a chaperone. There's a dance. There's a whole thing for quinceañeras and sweet 16s. You're treated as a princess very early on and told, hey, you're a princess. You got to protect yourself. You got to protect what's down there. You're going to have a boyfriend, or you can't have a boyfriend now, and you got to do this, you got to do that. So I would say that's toxic behavior from a female perspective. Because why would you tell a woman very early on, oh, you're a princess? Now she's going to grow up thinking that she's a princess. And everything she's going to expect is that for a man to treat her as a princess. And that's a problem.
Right. I agree. And it comes from both ways, right? I think we both females and males have learned behaviors that are taught to us by habit, by culture, by tradition, right? None of it is right or wrong. It's what it has been. But I'm more focused on what it has created, what it has manifested. So just like you said, for women, it has manifested this ideology that she needs to be treated like a princess. And what does a princess mean? And it kind of removes anything that has to do with challenges and really being honest, right? And then with men being able to, or having to, and not just ejaculate, because just to give you some background, women also, right, go into puberty at age. I got my period at 10 years old, right? And so before my quinceañera, so technically I could have gotten pregnant way before I was told to protect my vagina, right? And that's a problem. But nonetheless, right, I had a high libido. I also was touching myself. The only difference between you and I is that I was taught to suppress it and not talk about it and act like it's not existing. And you were praised and encouraged to release it. And I had to hide it. I had to watch porn at 9 years old and release by myself and try to figure out how am I going to release this, right? And then find ways to figure out how I'm going to deal with these feelings that I feel physically. Either way, is it healthy, right? Is this a toxic sexual habit that was taught to us, and now we're adults living in an experience that is a consequence of those habits?
Absolutely, I agree. It's not those what we have now is because of some of that. It definitely has made us, like you said, from a female perspective, princess treatment, from a guy's perspective, aggressive, go after everything. It definitely has a lot to do with that, bringing the way we're raised and the way things happen in those early years. Absolutely, 100% agree. And that's why we need to have a conversation of relearning or unlearning, as you say, that behavior, because ultimately we all want a good, healthy relationship. And I think, from my perspective, men know that a good, healthy relationship has compromises, right? So from a traditional male perspective, I'm willing to provide and pay and be the king you want me to be, right? But that's me giving, right? And what I expect in return is a woman that's going to be faithful to me and is going to treat me like a king, right? So that's my give, that's my take. Women expect that as well. They expect you to be the king you are, and for them to be the only woman in your life. But those expectations don't meet up once we change our ideology of what life is. And
so this is a great transition. So let's get into it. Like we spoke about, men's toxic sexual behaviors. They're using sex as a coping mechanism, lack of self-control, high libido, leading with the ego. Now let's talk about how women have a fictional expectations of relationships.
Very fictional. I think it's very fictional. I used to argue this all the time. That whole like Disney princess movies, like think about Disney movies, like most of them have to do with a princess that's getting rescued or meets a prince and whatever, right? That shit is literally what women grow up thinking. And they think that once the guy proposes is happily ever after. And there's no working into it. That, from my understanding, for women, because men, we don't complain. What we do is we adjust to the rules of the game. Whatever you want us to do to make you happy, we'll do it. We'll make you happy. But then we're going to make ourselves happy too. And the same way that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make you happy, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make myself happy. Because at the end of the day, we compete. We're part of the, let's just do it. Let's make sure that we win but let's win in our terms. Women want to kind of block you in and expect you to do that. Expect you to have this whole treat me as a princess, and you can only do that with me. You can only have that sort of relationship with me, and there's nothing else to it other than that. And so there's definitely truth to it. You grow up thinking that you're a princess, there's gonna be problems. We don't grow up thinking that we're king. You know why? Because what happens to the king usually? He gets beheaded. The average king in most kingdoms doesn't last very long. Only very few kings make it to die in their deathbed. Most of them get conquered and die. But the princesses survive. Think about that in history. When you have a king that conquers another kingdom, the king and the prince, the heir, get beheaded. The princess and the queen, what happens to them? They stay in the kingdom. They stay in the palace. They remain as royals. The most that happens is that they get sent to a monastery to live the rest of their lives. Women are always treated as the most treacherous, valuable thing. In history, it's always been that way. And that sort of ideology has gone into relationships. And now that women want the same thing as men, we want equality, it becomes distressful to have this sort of back and forth with them. It's complicated.
Yeah, the feminist movement. I was just on the phone with one of my friends, sidebar, and we were talking about the feminist movements and how the feminist movement, and ladies, bear with me, just hear me out. The feminist movement, I think, shifted things in the perspective of opening the doors of opportunity and changing us to be a battling and competition with men, right? I believe that women and men are different for a reason. We have different functions for a reason. We have different lifestyles for a reason. We have different biologies for a reason. And the fact that we want to be equal has ruined our whole spectrum. Now, do I agree that we should have the same opportunities? Do I believe in equal pay? If I'm doing the same job and I'm doing just as a good job, should I be compensated for it? Of course. But does that mean that now, because I have to procreate, because I am now literally manifesting a whole human being in my body, and I still have to work and I still have to adhere to those same standards? No, I don't believe that's the case. But because we fought so much for these equal stuff, we really sabotaged ourselves, right? And now we have to live for the circumstances for that. So I 100% agree with you on that. I agree that, this whole men do everything for women, this whole courting narrative that has been taught to us, that the man has to court the woman and you just have to sit here and just wait to be courted and wait to be chosen thing. Like, I've always was nauseated by that experience. And I knew I was different early on when my friends would have these conversations about oh, you have to let the men pay. You have to let the men do this and you have to wait for him to buy you the drink. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go. I'm thirsty and I'm going to go and order my drink because and guess I'm going to get into that table and I'm going to pay half of this bill because you know what? I need him to know that he's building a partnership and not a codependent relationship. And so that's my connecting. I am going to tell my man, you know what? I don't want you to stop having female friendships. I don't want you to stop having connections with the people in your lives because you're now in a relationship with me, because I want you to have a life. I don't want to be your life. I don't want to be your everything. I want us to be whole individuals that come together. I don't need to be completed. I knew that from an early age, right? But the narrative of that is completely opposite. So I usually don't even talk about my relationships and anything romantically, even when I was younger with my female friends, because it was always like this, you're crazy. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, wait a second. Should I be taking your advice? None of you guys have successful relationships. Right. So obviously the way that we're doing it, it's not functional. You're trying to sell me something that's not working and telling me I should stop the way that I'm doing it. And I mean, all my exes are still here helping me do things, whether they're in my life romantically or not. So that says something about me and the way I've done things. I have really solid platonic relationships with men. And I think that says a lot about me too. So I lead with my experience, right? But that's not what the majority tells you to do. right? And we're ridiculed for living outside of those parameters. So I agree. I think we have fictional expectations of what a relationship means. And the first fictional thing is this idea that you have to control your man and he has to live for you, and you are 50% of something and you need to be completed.
Yeah, I agree. So recently I posted some stuff on my Instagram and it had about 20 something responses, and two were negative, right? And what I posted was along the lines exactly what you're saying. And the two negatives that I had, one pretty much said, oh, I disagree. I think that when an alpha male gets with a female that he wants, he stops chasing other women. That's what her idea was. And I told her, that's what you expect, and that expectation is wrong. Because if you sit around and you wait for the alpha guy, the alpha hunter, to come after you, because that's what you want him to come after you, buy you stuff, get you the drink, get to know you, plan the date. He is that guy, right? He's not going to stop being that guy. It is his nature. And the same way you want a guy to naturally be an alpha, because it shows qualities of being a provider. It shows qualities of being someone that goes through issues and tries to solve them. Things like that. Those are the kind of examples that she brought up, which is true. Guys that are usually that aggressive usually tend to be successful, right? In their careers and making money and whatever the case may be. What happens is that that's not going to change. Even if he stops going after other women for a couple of years, his success is going to increase because his value is going to increase with age. And his aggressiveness is going to increase with age, because everything that he has in terms of his experience, his money, the ability to get to places, the ability to find women and continue to be of value, that will always increase for men up to a certain age. And so you're going to get yourself an alpha male that will eventually do some alpha male shit, which means he's going to go for another woman. And so women that expect for that not to happen because now they're in love, that's where things fall apart, which is why 80 to 75, 80% of all divorces are, done or started by women, because they find out, oh shit, this guy cheated on me.
Right. Or cheating becomes a deal breaker, right? Like it's like the reason why we get out of relationships. I agree. I think that the idea of requesting that you want this alpha man and you want it to look like this, but then you want him to do other things, it don't match, right?
It doesn't match. No.
Something and then like want to bitch him around. Like, no, you wanted to deal with the boss and you're expecting him to act like a woman. And that's not, it's contradicting, right? It
doesn't add up.
It's not gonna equal to ever, right?
So I think your approach of starting, not that you're going to be the man, but starting something, showing initiative in what you want, that kind of shocks a man into thinking, oh shit, hold up, I got to analyze the situation. What's going on here? And he's going to be off his game, because when guys go out, clubbing night, whatever, there's already a game in mind. Guys are competitive. They already know, I got to go first. I got to ask her to dance first. I got to buy her the drink first. I got to talk first. All these things guys know instinctively. So when a guy approaches you early on in the night, he's got game. He's planned this. He's practiced this for years. But when you approach him and you all of a sudden are like, hey, how you doing? What's his name? What's your name? Or buy him a drink or whatever the case may be, you're completely flipping the script, and he's going to show more of his true self because he's unprepared. And so at that point, there's a better understanding. You can sit down on the table. He's willing to sit down on the table and negotiate and actually tell you, listen, this is how I am. This is how it is. But most women don't understand that.
Yeah, we're playing into the game. And it sucks that it's even a game, to be honest. I don't like playing games. I'm not competitive. That's my female energy side leads in that case. I don't think it should be a game trip. I don't see it as a game trip when I approach it differently. I do it more to open, like you said, to open the conversation, to open the communication, right? And last year I started like the bag him hashtag, where I was just like, yo, bag him, like go out and hit on him, like start looking at guys like, yo, man, you look good, like And I was doing that in the street, and like some guys literally wouldn't come back and try to get at me. Like a lot of them were like, "Oh, thank you," and a lot of them were like, "Oh, wow, you're talking to me?" Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm talking to you. You look good today. Like you're looking fine today." And he's like, "Oh, thank you." Like and it's like, yo, why can't we? Let's reciprocate, right? Let's find forms of reciprocation. Let's put out what it is that we want back into this world instead of just waiting for the world to feed us. Like I'm a go-getter. I get what I want and I get by giving, right? So that's just a mental shift. So how do you think the pressure to keep traditions is impacting this problem?
Well, there's a lot of pressure to keep traditions because it's usually what we grow up thinking. We don't tend to think for ourselves. We tend to do things however they've been done before. And ultimately, what the value you see in monogamy is when you're older. Not 40s, no, I'm talking about like 70s, 60s. There's value in monogamy for that age group because at that point in your life, you're in your golden years. You want someone that you've grown to respect and love, and that usually happens with 10, 20 years of going through shit, right? At that point, you've either grown apart or grown together. If you've grown apart, then that's why most divorces happen in the 40s, right? But if you've grown together, if you make it through the 50s and into the 60s, you probably aren't going to get divorced. So there's value in monogamy there, and that's why we all think, oh, that's what we got to do, because at some point I'm going to be old, I'm going to be 70, and I don't want to be by myself. Same thing with kids, right? Oh, who's going to take care of me when I'm 70? Am I going to be in a nursing home? Whatever the case may be. Because like right now, I had a sick father. I have a mom that's not sick, but older in age. The sons, the children take care of them. That's why we have pressure in ourselves to have kids, because we know that at some point we're going to be old, and we either have to pay for someone to take care of us, or we're going to have our kids take care of us, more or less. And so there's pressure to have kids, and there's pressure in monogamy because of that age group. So that's really what it is. The pressure is in older in life, I need to have this. And in order for me to have that, I'm not going to meet someone at 60. I need to meet them early and have their relationship remain throughout so that we can make it to 60 together. And at that point, we ain't going to be separated. And add to that, guys usually at 60 very rarely cheat or have a very low libido. If they cheat, is because psychological problems. But at that point, you're probably not having sex all over the place, although it still happens. But that's really the pressure. The pressure is age. When am I going to get to 60? Who am I going to be with at 60? I'm not going to be dating at 60. I'm not going to be finding people at 60. I'm not going to have kids at 60. It needs to happen earlier, which is why we have pressure to get married, to have kids, to find that person early. That's really what it is.
So we're not living for today. We're not living for today. We're living for what's gonna potentially happen if we get to this space.
Yes. If let's say hypothetically I got sick and I knew that I was gonna die at 45. I probably won't get married. I'll probably go out, travel, have a bunch of fun, and that's it. I'll probably have a kid just to kind of have the experience of a kid up to 5, leave him whatever I have, and that's it. And I'll have a kid with whatever woman I think is going to be a good mom, and that's it. I'm not going to worry about, oh, she needs to be perfect. I need to have a good partner. We need to last. Like, no, I know that I'm going to die at 45, so I'm going to do all of these things, and I'm not going to worry about monogamy. It's going to be out the window. The last thing in my head is going to be monogamy. I want to be out there in other countries doing my thing. But because I think I'm going to last.
The possibility.
That's why I'm like, ooh, I need to. And in the back of the head, we don't think about it, but in the back of the head, that's what it is.
Yeah, subconsciously. So I and I guess that makes I never thought about it like that, but now that you bring it up, that makes a lot of sense. I think that we're definitely prolonging it longer now than ever. I actually thought the other day too, like maybe I'll just get married at 50, like when it actually matters to be married, right? It matters to be 55 because at that point I've already did everything I needed to do, prioritize myself, and now I want to share my aging time with someone so that I can have partnership at that time in my life. But right now, why would it be a priority?
It's
right?
not. I think Yeah, I think if you get married in your 50s, it's actually okay because if you have a great quality relationship for 10, 15 years, that's worth more than having, an average relationship for from 25 whatever. So I'd say that's okay. And at 50, 45, you're still perfectly within range. It's perfectly fine. The whole pregnancy thing might be an issue, but depending on where your situation is financially, you can freeze your eggs, you can do a bunch of different things so that
We
you
got options.
right, you got options now medically. The world is changing, so obviously there'll be more options in the future. So you can definitely do it. But 50 is kind of like okay, it's getting kind of fishy. Once you get into your 60s and 70s, you're not going to be there. You're not going to have the energy. You're not going to want to. You're going to probably just focus on your golden years. So I agree. I agree.
So lastly, are we forcing monogamy, Jesus? Tell me.
We're forcing monogamy. We're doing it at a state level, and we're doing it at a social level. Like marriage in this country, like it's a legal thing. Like it's a legal document. You can't get. I mean, I don't want to get technical into the polygamy and all these different things that are not allowed legally and all these things. But I think that we're pushing it. It's part of our culture because it's part of the predominant religion in the country, which is Christianity. And so there are a lot of religious points to having monogamy be a thing, which is included into our legal points, which is why legally being married is a huge deal. Implications in taxes, implications in that person gets to pull the plug if you're in a coma. Like there's a bunch of things about being married that are like legally binding and legally big for a person. And so that is something that is adding to the
The
forceful
pressure.
to the
Yeah.
pressure of being in a monogamous relationship. Um, I disagree. I don't think we should be forcing monogamy on anybody. I think people need to come to the table and have honest conversation about what it is that they want. Because I know women that like what I like. The same way I know women that want to be 100% monogamous. So I know that I'm not going to date them, but I might date them. Like, and so my job is let me not lie to the one that's religious and wants to be monogamous. Let me keep them as a friend, and we can go dancing, we can be friends, we can be cool. Especially because the one that is along the lines of what I want is going to be also comfortable with me having friends, which is important. So I think you just got to find that group that aligns with your mindset in terms of what you think monogamy or what you think you want from your relationship. Because ultimately, I mean, there's polyamorous relationships nowadays where you have
There's different forms. Yeah.
different forms. Do you have multiple people, or you have polygyny, which is one guy, multiple women, or polygamous, which is multiple wives. You have the opposite of that, which I forgot if it's with an N or an M, which is one woman and multiple guys. Like you have a bunch of stuff.
But which is not new, by the way. This is historically the polygamy, it started that way, actually. Monogamy came after polygamy, just a FYI.
And arranged marriages, right? And I'm just going to bring this up because I did some research, and this is something that I thought was good to come up with. Arranged marriages, the reason why they work, 90% of arranged marriages do not end up in divorce. They maintain, is because there is no lying, or the communication or the agreement doesn't happen between the two parties that could lie. The communication or the agreement happens between the parents, which have the absolute best interest in both of their kids and aren't lying. And so it's based on an agreement, not based on love, but based on the agreement of assets and an agreement of well-being, right?
Legacy, yeah.
Yeah. And so while I might not agree with it because, I agree that you should love or have some sort of emotional connection to someone. I agree in that. So I wouldn't want to have an arranged marriage. But there's a lot of value in the fact that the negotiations that happens above you by your parents are so honest and so down to the core that you will never have it with your partner. You will never have it with your partner unless you are doing this that we're doing later on in our years. But when you're in your 20s, you're not gonna have the kind of conversation that we're having, and you're not gonna have the kind of conversation your parents have in an arranged marriage, which usually tends up working in the long term. So I just kind of bring that up because it's
Yeah,
important
that's
to know that there are other options other than monogamy, and other options other than the traditional marriage where you meet someone and you lie to each other and you tell each other, yes, I'm going to be with you forever, and you're the only one in my life, and I love you, and whatever happens until the day we die. But we know that's bullshit because 50% of the time it doesn't happen. And so that conversation, until we grow to become extremely bluntly honest, and we're willing to let go of people, because that's the problem. If I find a hot girl and I think she's cool, I don't want to lose her, so I'm going to lie to her so that I can keep her.
manipulation.
And then 2-3 years go by, and now she's like, hey, put a ring on it. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess I got to put a ring on it so I can keep her. And it's just building until eventually it comes down crumbling, because at some point, my true nature is going to come out. And she's going to think that I'm a piece of trash when I'm, and I am if I'm lying, which is why I don't lie. I don't lie anymore. I just tell them. And I've cheated before. I've been cheated. I've lied before. Now, at this point in my life, I keep it funky. I keep it honest, which is why I have a problem being alone. If you want to be with me, then you know what it is. The same way that I will accept you as long as you tell me. And that's it.
Where you're at.
We shouldn't force monogamy on people. We shouldn't.
Yeah, it's we need to stop. We need to really stop. And so I kind of wanted, I Googled this statement because I kind of just wanted to do it for shits and giggles and to see what would come up. So I Googled, will monogamy die out? And what I got was monogamy will never die. Most humans have a natural jealousy seeing their partner with someone else. It might seem like it's dying, but trust me, it will never will. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I agree, and it's because, well, I agree. Well, okay, this is what I think. I thought about this a lot actually. So there are things that you do with your partner in privacy that are just between you and your partner, and if anyone outside of you two know it, like your friends find out, you'll be embarrassed. It could be a kink. It could be a sexual kink. It could be that you let him step out of your relationship and have sex with other women. It could be that as well. As long as you keep it private, and because you are comfortable and okay with it, then there isn't a problem. The problem is when that privacy gets broken and other people find out, which is why I saw a post the other day. I don't remember who it was that said that men are more likely to stay after their wife cheats, as long as it's private.
So jealousy only happens in public, not in private.
In public, exactly. So if no one knows that my girl got fucked, I'm sorry. If no one knows that you did that, if you don't go on public dates, if you don't show this other guy, if you don't do things that are publicly out there with that, oh shit, she's cheating, she's doing this. If it's all private, it's very likely that I'm gonna be like, all right, we can work through it. But the minute any one of my friends can possibly know, I can't stay with you anymore. So privacy is the most important thing in monogamy, because if you keep it private, you can always work it through, and most importantly, what you don't see doesn't hurt you. So I'm not gonna be, humiliating you because you're my wife, right? You're my partner. I'm not gonna humiliate you. I'm not gonna go out, buy her gifts, do things that are exclusive for you. But if quietly, if I get home an hour later every day and nothing changes, you'll probably be okay with it. You'll probably grow into it. I would probably grow into it as well. Maybe not every day, but you know what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that privacy, the fact that your relationship is your relationship and it needs to maintain that level of privacy, that's the most important thing. Because if you do that, then you have options. You have options to say, okay, I'm not going to stay with you. I'm going to stay with you. Because we care about our peers. I, as a man, I would lose respect from all of my peers if my wife steps out on me and is public. But if no one knows, my friends don't know, then I don't care.
Then that goes to the statement that we made earlier about us fearing judgment. Like, really, is the judgment and the opinions of others that we so much love to say that we don't care about, but we strongly
We
care
do.
about it so much so that we're willing to let go of something that is ultimately working and you will be fine with in private, but in public it's a problem and you're willing to just cut off because of that. So the
Yep.
embarrassment.
Yeah.
Oof.
And that's why I
Deep.
said in an agreement, if you agree with her that, you know what, and it's not to say, like, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm going to be out there having sex with every girl I find. I may very well go 10 years and just be with you. But I would like the freedom that if one day there's a special case of a special situation where there's a woman I would like to engage with, I want the freedom to be able to do it quietly outside of my relationship, knowing that you'll be okay with it and that I would not disrespect you or humiliate you or do anything that would offend you by going out with her publicly or anything like that. I would like the freedom to do that. And by you giving me that freedom, it's actually less likely that I'll do it.
So privacy is also respect, is what I heard.
Privacy, respect.
Privacy is a form of respect. Oof, that's deep. So I also ran into this book. It's called Designer Relationship, and it's like this comic, Mark Michaels and Patricia Johnson, and they did an outline of the 4 different types of monogamy. They said there's 4 of them: sexual, social, structural, and emotional. So let me read these to you guys just because it's a little comic relief. So sexual monogamy is if you have an agreement to be sexually exclusive with a partner. Emotional is the agreement to be emotionally exclusive, generally refers to restricting that romantic and love feelings that exist between partners. Social, it can look like an agreement to only share a specific activity with a specific person, like, watching your favorite shows together. So if you don't do that with somebody else, you're obviously, you're not being monogamous to that relationship. And lastly, structural, the types of practical things partners often share when they are in a committed relationship with each other, like finances, responsibilities, and family dynamics. So I thought that was interesting that there were different types of monogamy. And really, you could, like you said, it's all an agreement, and it depends on the type of agreement that you set up with your relationship. And as long as you keep things private and honest, then anything can work.
Yeah, anything can work. Actually, let me give you an example. I was dating this young lady not so long ago, and I told her, hey, I might go to Brazil for 2 weeks, right? And she said, oh, this is what she said. She said, oh, you know what? If you go to Brazil and this is going to be your first and probably only time in Brazil, you got to have sex with someone in Brazil. She told me that. She said, you have to do it. I mean, you got to have sex with a Brazilian before you die. Why not? They're very sexually, socially, and in our world, Brazilians are very praised for their sexual prowess and the way they look and all of that. So if I go to Brazil, I most likely would do that. She jumped in front of me and was like, if you go to Brazil, you got to do it. So this is someone that understands that we have an agreement structurally, socially, emotionally, and sexually, she's willing to let go because it's in another country. This is one of those women that was like, oh, as long as it's not in the country, it's fine, which is a form of agreement. It's a form of agreement. That's why a lot of people go to other countries to do their dirt, because their women allow, or their partners allow, for that to happen in other countries. It's a form of an agreement. And if it's private, like we said, it's perfectly fine. She's not going to be telling her friends that, oh yeah, my man is in Brazil right now doing his thing. She knows, or we know, that there's a structure there. So to what you're saying in terms of an emotional agreement and social agreement, now let me tell you an example of when I was cheated on, right? I was cheated on, and it hurt because there was an agreement that was broken, right? So I told her, was it just sex? Oh yeah, it was just sex. Okay. So I let it go and I stayed with her. But it wasn't just sex, because she started to act differently, because she was emotionally compromised. And so she broke the emotional agreement. The sex part I didn't care about. I stayed with her. No, it wasn't a problem. I mean, we argued a little bit, but like, okay, let it go. But she broke the emotional agreement when she got emotionally involved with this person. And so at that point, we got to cut it off. So there are different agreements that you sort of accept and you sort of allow it to happen.
Yeah. I made an agreement myself. I was 16, imagine. And this will actually express how my mental state was and is now. I was in a relationship, 16 years old. I'm a kid. I was still a virgin. I wasn't ready to be sexually involved with my mate, for that matter. And so I knew that my partner may have had desires because he wasn't a virgin. So I said, listen, if you find a situation and this is what you want to do and you're not going to get emotionally attached, I think you should do it. Go get your sexual desires because I don't want you to put pressure on me to have to do this. I want to do this on my terms.
Right.
So you. And he did twice. The first time he didn't tell me directly, but the second time he did. And he's like, listen, it already happened with this person twice. What do you think? I'm like, my ego is a little hurt right now. I'm going to be honest. There is a little jealousy in me, but I told you can. I'm going to honor that. And let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
And I was like, was it good? Was it worth it? Perfect. Great. You got your release? Good.
Yeah.
Done. And we were together for 3 years. And I eventually, we eventually went there together, but I didn't force myself to do it earlier than I needed to, which was my priority.
Yeah.
I waited until I was ready. And when I was ready, it happened and it was beautiful and I chose it. And really my first time story doesn't have to be something negative because of me being honest, because of me being open with my partner. So you guys just let go of the control, let go of
the control.
Yeah, and be with somebody who chooses to want to be with you. Like, stop trying to force somebody to be in a relationship with you. Like, that is not even attractive. Like, a man that doesn't want me, I don't even want. Like, you shouldn't want somebody and force somebody to be with you. Learn to be by yourself and get so confident and so sure and so secure in yourself that doesn't even have to happen. So
that's it.
Drop mic.
Having that honest conversation, man, that's it. You just got to have an honest conversation. Those agreements, understanding each other's, what you actually need, what you're willing to accept. That's it. And then have your relationship be your relationship. It's a very unique relationship. It's like no one else's. There are no, but he did this. Your girl's going to always be like, but he did this. You let him go. Listen, we have an agreement. I may feel some type of way because the relationship is going to be perfect. I may feel some type of way. You may feel some type of way. There are going to be emotions here and there, but our agreements, for the most part, are going to maintain that relationship core, and so we'll get through things. And that's why I think that at an older age, 30s, early 40s, we're able to have these conversations, and we're able to maybe not lie to our partners, hopefully, and then. Once you have that agreement, it can flourish. After that, it's going to get to the point where the relationship starts to flourish and you don't even think about those mechanics anymore. You just think about the growth, we're going to buy the next house, we're going to do the next thing. And that's when you're past the bullshit.
The focus will shift, the growth will happen, the healing will happen naturally if we just allow it to. And stop listening to your friends and talking to your business about with your friends. They lonely. They don't got nobody. So stop taking advice from people who can't.
Absolutely.
Who can't, period. So let's close this out. Jesus and I have unlearned traditional monogamy is the only way. History has shown us time and time again, monogamous living is a challenge. I mean, I hear the story of my grandparents or my grandmother had a child out of marriage. No one talked about it. And my grandfather had a separate family that lived down the street and no one talked about that either. Infidelity is not a new problem, but how can we find healing, understanding, and alignment as we evolve into a lifestyle we can all coexist without deceit, manipulation, shame, and disrespect? Where can we find acceptance in a lifestyle tradition that is expired? I do not have the answers, but I am dedicated to spend the rest of my life creating and contributing to the new world. Mark my word. So thank you, Jesus. This was
Yes.
as usual. I knew it would be. I appreciate you. Thank you for your knowledge, for your transparency, and your honesty, and for trusting me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a good conversation. I enjoyed it. Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Until next time, laters.
See you. Peace.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe and follow on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube at Relayshons Podcast via The Diary of MR. M as in Melissa, R as in Rosario. And now, the best part, here are the after credits, a message from my co-host.
So ultimately, I think that agreement is the best thing you can do. You got to go and you got to sit with your partner. You got to tell them exactly how you feel about long-term relationships and even a short-term relationship, just in case that relationship turns out to be short-term. Ultimately, have a relationship that has communication, where you both understand where you're coming from, where you want to go, what kind of things you're willing to give up, what kind of things you're willing to accept. And if there is an area where you have to lie to your friends. Tell your friends whatever they want to hear, but keep your relationship private and keep it to your partner, because ultimately that's the person you want to grow old with. So that's the person that you got to have the secrets with. Not your friends, not your family, your partner. And if you keep that as that partnership together like that, then trust me, you can get through anything. That's what I think.